draft. We're going to talk right now about Jalen Springer. But again, before we get started, subscribe to the channel. Throwing out so much NBA content here with the offseason happening. We'll do a mock draft later today and kind of preview what's going to happen in the draft tonight, as well as we're making videos about the offseason and a whole lot of other stuff NBA related. So if you like the NBA, feel free to subscribe to the channel, comment, join the live stream. We'll be doing a lot of stuff here in the future. Let's jump into Jalen Springer. Springer is really interesting. He's actually a guy that I watched a lot of. I actually think he's a better, and we'll kind of get into this when we talk about potential high risk bust type players in the draft. He's a guy I actually like a lot better than his teammate Keon Johnson. So what I see in Springer is a guy who can play either guard position. He can defend. Go look at his steal rate is really solid. He can rebound. The one interesting thing that there were so many games that I watched of him, and I think this is where some of the he kind of cooled off as a prospect is that he was like supposed to be like coming out of high school. He was really athletic. A lot of people looked at that, highly recruited, and he was he's a guy that I just was watching, and when he played in high school, super athletic, but we didn't really see a whole lot of that in Tennessee. Now, Rick Barnes, the Tennessee head coach, was a guy, and he coached this team in a way where he didn't play these young freshmen to start the season. Later in the season, he did in those minutes with a minutes increase and a little bit more of a kind of a spotlight role for Springer. He was able to up his numbers a little bit more, but there's so many plays where I just watch him and he is just contesting really well. He's being a good athlete. He's being a good passer. I think his shot is there, but he just didn't take too many shots from three specifically. So yeah, I like Jalen Springer a lot, and I think if he lands with a team that like is a playoff team that needs a point guard, I think that would be tremendous for him. And I don't know if he's going to go into the top 14. It sounds like a lot of people are targeting Book Knight, targeting Davion Mitchell, Franz Wagner, Josh Giddey. And those guys are good, and I have my opinions about them, but I just really value Springer. I think he's a late lottery pick, in my opinion, but I think he's going to drop in the draft and maybe be selected in the mid-20s. He's a guy to keep an eye on for tonight's draft. So let's move forward to my next guy, Adnan Sungoon. I absolutely hated Sungoon when I first watched some things with him. I thought that he's a guy who's maybe going away in the NBA as far as like the center who's scoring at the basket. I watched a little bit more, kind of fell in love with him a little bit more, and ultimately I kind of have come around to Sungoon as a guy that I think he's going to go top 10 tonight. And I think he actually has a relatively interesting ceiling. He has really good passing IQ for a big man. He can step out, shoot the three as well. But a lot of the highlights you'll watch on just YouTube is that you'll see him cut into the basket, being a guy who can be a rim runner, a little bit of athleticism, and he is so young, yet he is also a guy who won the MVP in the Turkey League that he played in. So dude's got size. I think he's definitely a center. Now again, the one thing, and this is what turned me off on him initially, he is not a defensive guy at all. But is there an option for him to be a light version of somebody that can run to the rim, be athletic, get some rebounds, stretch the floor a little bit? Maybe. I think there's some potential there, but is he Jan Vesely? I don't know. I think he provides some potential. Is the potential, ceiling breaking? I don't think so, but I do think he's going to actually provide something and be a guy who may not be a starting center in the league, but is a very good backup center. Somebody on like kind of the Enes Kanter tier. He's not an Enes Kanter type of player, but it's hard for me to kind of think of a comparison for him because again, he can stretch the floor, he can run the floor, he can be able to finish. He's athletic, not really a great defensive player. If you have a comp, feel free to throw it in the comment section. I think Sungoon's going to go in the top 10 tonight, and I think his value is probably better than some of the guys I'll probably talk about in my high risk players, which we're going to stream right after this. Next, this is one of my favorite guys in the draft. And again, another guy who is, if a team needs a point guard, I think they would be ecstatic. I would be ecstatic to get Sharif Cooper out of Auburn. Go look at his assist rate. He was high usage, getting a lot of assists, a very good passer. He reminded me, and this is going to blow some people away. He reminded me a little bit like Apex at his top tier game at Auburn when he was looking tremendous. He reminded me a little bit of what Russell Westbrook is. Athletic, he can pass. Not really a great shooter, not really a good defender, but a guy who has some ceiling and can be maybe a sixth man in the NBA that comes in, gets buckets, gets others involved. And I think if there was one report about Sharif Cooper that said like the Lakers, the Celtics, I think it was the Spurs, and some other like kind of well-known teams as far as like good front offices. I think maybe the Raptors were one too, but a lot of good teams were looking at him. And again, he's a guy. If he drops into the 20s, I would be ecstatic if I was him. If I was a playoff team, because I think there is a lot of potential there. If his jump shot comes along better, then I think he definitely has something to provide in for a team. Got good size. He kind of just looks, not great size as far as his tallness or his height, I should say. He's 6'1", so he's kind of a smaller guard, but he's explosive. And I really like Cooper. I think he's got a spot and a role in the NBA. All right. The next is Miles McBride. Miles McBride. So Miles McBride is a guard, and again, another guard from West Virginia. I think he's a dude that, while he also is not super tall, he's 6'2". He provides some shooting. He provides some solid playmaking. I really like McBride. I think, again, if you're looking for a guard that can just kind of be kind of the backup point guard on a team, is he kind of like a Darren Collinson like player, where he's just solid, right? I like Deuce McBride. The one thing I kind of worry about is just his shooting a little bit. I mean, he was a really good 3-point shooter, but his 2-point percentage wasn't great. Shot 41% from 3 this last season, 28.5% assist percentage. So he's getting there. Pretty solid in that area. A 3% steal rate, which is always solid. So I think he's a solid dude. Again, I like thinking of kind of a Cameron Payne kind of a role for some of these point guards. So I do like Deuce McBride in that regard. Again, provides shooting, provides some defense, provides a little bit of rebounding for a guard, and is good there. So yeah, that is Deuce McBride. I think he'll be another guy who's going to be in the 20s, but maybe a team tries to trade up, maybe a playoff team. If the Lakers, I'm just going to throw the Lakers as an example. If the Lakers were able to get at 22, like McBride, Cooper, one of these guys I'm talking about, I think Springer is another one. I think that would be super good for them. All right, so our next one is Herb Jones. I said in the video that we're talking about 5. We're going to throw in one more. Aiden Chermesh says, "What's up? Thanks for joining the stream, Aiden. Feel free to comment. We're going to do a couple, 2 more players here, and then we're going to move forward. But let's talk about Herb Jones. Herb Jones. So Alabama. Now he's older, and that kind of worries people a little bit when he is. When you talk about these older prospects, you kind of worry and say, okay, how much are they going to be able to kind of improve in the NBA? And Herb Jones, I think, I thought of Thaddeus Young. I think he rebounds. I think he passes. Aiden is asking when the draft is. The draft is tonight. Depending on where you're located, it will be 8 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. So that's when the draft is. And feel free to tune in. Again, tomorrow we'll be doing a live stream of kind of a review of the NBA draft. So Aiden, if you're not subscribed to the channel, feel free to join us on that. And we're making a lot of NBA content over here. Back to Herb Jones. Again, a guy I think who has some versatility. I think he's long. He can play some defense. His steal rate was pretty solid. His block rate was pretty solid at Alabama. Now, how much is that him just being an older player and dominating some younger players? I don't know, but I do see a role for him. I see a little bit of a Thaddeus Young kind of type of a comp for him, where he can stretch out the floor a little bit, but not to the point where you're like, calling him like a dead-eye shooter or anything like that. He's versatile, plays defense, he's long. I think he's worth a flyer for a team. So I know I mentioned 5 players. I am going to throw in one more, and it is Jared Butler. There's one little kind of asterisk that comes with this is that Butler is a guy who is 6'3". Initially, I thought he was taller. He plays taller. But I think he's a dude that he plays defense. He is a guy who I believe is a solid passer. He shoots the three very, very well. Almost 42% from three this year. And he's a guy who I think can have a role on a team. Now, I wish he was taller. If Jared Butler is like 6'8", I think he's going to go like top 10, right? But he is 6'3", he's a smaller guard. Again, plays tough, and I think he's got a role in the NBA. Play defense, shoot the three. You always hear about the 3-and-D type of players in the NBA that teams value, and I really believe that Jared Butler falls into that category. There was a little bit issue where there were some health concerns to whether he could actually play in the NBA. I think those have kind of been worked out recently. It sounds like there are reports that he's good to go, and maybe that boosts his stock a little bit more. Again, a guy I think is going to go outside of the lottery, but will be an impact player in the NBA and somebody that I'm personally high on. All right, that is it for our gems that we see here in the first round. Feel free to comment on the video. Again, Aiden commented when the draft is and was asking about that. It is tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN or whatever platform you want to use to watch it. And again, tomorrow we'll be doing a live stream about who we believe won the draft, did good in the draft, potential trades that came about from the draft. And then in just about an hour, we'll be doing a final mock draft ourselves, talking a little bit about what could happen in the first round of the NBA draft. Thanks for joining me. We're going to get another live stream started here in just a moment of potential